bring to the interview? Of course, your passport, the photo that I mentioned. Now, normally that would be scanned in as well. You would bring your original I-20, which is the document I mentioned for F1 applicants, or you bring your DS 2019. That's the document for J1. It's just slightly different, but they're both student documents for student visas. Next, your receipt of visa fees and SEVIS payment that just shows us, yep, they've paid the application fee and they've paid their SEVIS fee, okay? And then some people like to also bring school transcripts if they've currently been studying in Kazakhstan, and any scores from standardized tests. Maybe you took the TOEFL or something, and now maybe you took the SATs, right? Just show your best, be honest, and show who you are. Show your life. Explain why you're a good candidate. Okay. Some people don't always tell me the truth, and I have to, in that conversation, decide if I think you will use your visa appropriately. Visa gives you permission to knock on the door. I'm at the border, let me in. It gives you permission to present yourself at the port of entry to our Customs and Border Patrol. Then they might have a short conversation with you, look at your passport, whatever information, and then they provide a length of stay, okay? They provide how long you can actually stay in the country. So when you're granted permission to enter, you'll usually be granted permission for the duration of your student status. So let's say you're going for a year. Usually that's what, sometimes, not always, but usually is what CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, they will give you the length of stay for the duration of your student status, okay? And that means you can stay as long as you're a full-time student, even if the F1 visa in your passport expires while you're in the States. So, if you go for a year on if you have an F1 visa, and the visa, for whatever reason, is only valid through, it's September, and you're going in September, and the visa in your passport is only valid through January, let's say. That probably wouldn't happen, but if it was. But you're going for a full year, as long as they approved you for a full year, you can stay in the United States for the full year, okay, for your student status. That's just something important to know, because sometimes people confuse visa validity with approved length of stay, which are not the same, okay? So, which brings us to the question of how long can you stay? So, you can stay, as long as you're a full-time student, as I said, up to 5 years. Okay? And when do you need to get a new visa? Sometimes people do. There's a couple of reasons you might need to get a new visa. Sometimes people come back to Kazakhstan or somewhere else, go somewhere else for more than 5 months. If that happens, you need to apply for a new visa. If you've already left and then you need to go back in, if your visa is expired, you need to apply for a new one. You can't use it to get back in to the US. If you change schools, sometimes people decide, you know what, I like that school better, or ooh, I got, a special grant to study there, or I love it, or whatever. Whatever the case may be, like someone over here was asking about the SEVIS, your number changes depending on that. So you would have to apply for a new visa in that case. And then also, if you postpone enrollment and have a new I-20 and SEVIS, you would need to apply for a new visa. And as I said, expiration date of the visa is not the same as authorized length of stay. They're two different things. So just be cognizant, be aware of the difference, okay? If you drop classes and are no longer a full-time student, you are no longer in status and you must leave the US, okay? If you complete the program, you must leave within 60 days. So I'm going to say that again because I see students sometimes get into trouble, not into trouble, but they get confused and tripped up. if you drop out of school, if it's just not working out, and you think, I'm gonna stay because I was given permission to stay until November. I'm just gonna stay and I'm gonna travel. I'm going to Disney World. I'm gonna go to Miami. I'm gonna go to Niagara Falls, wherever. No, don't do it. You leave if your student status ends. And I'll tell you why. Because that visa was given to you for that purpose. If you'd like to come back to the US as a tourist, okay, but you need to apply for a tourist visa and you need to enter the United States with that purpose, okay? And if you graduate or you complete, congratulations, but you need to leave within 60 days because you're there as a student. Can you work while you're studying in the US? Yes, but not full-time. First-year students can work on campus, but no more than 20 hours per week. And as somebody who's done a bachelor's and master's, and I'm sure most of you have done that as well in here, who wants to work more than 20 hours a week when you're going to school full-time? It would be really difficult. So, first-year students, you definitely cannot work more than 20 hours per week. And you can request to work off campus after your first year of study, but you have to apply through the Department of Homeland Security. So, what's expected of me during my studies? Obviously, obey local, state, federal, and immigration laws, attend classes on time, complete assignment and take your exams. Of course, don't cheat. Cheating is a big no-no in the US. You will get in big trouble, just like you would here. But have fun. I mean, if you get to go and you're, fortunate enough to have the means to study in a different country, just like I am fortunate enough to be here in your country, make the most of it, okay? It's a great thing. So this goes to what I was talking about job, what you can do with your job. Just one other thing, like I said, you'd have to apply for permission with the Department of Homeland Security for any off-campus work. And you also have to explain, you have to justify why you need to work more, because your primary purpose there is to study, it's not to be working. It's called Optional Parctical Training, and some students take advantage of this, which I think is really awesome. It's a temporary employment that you can have in the US that relates to your field, like your major, which I think is awesome because it gives you real experience that you can bring back to Kazakhstan with you and say, I already have been working in my field, or I have all this great research experience, or whatever. I think that that's a really, really great part of the program. So you can participate after you've been there for one full academic year. I think many people often do it at the end, once they've completed their studies, but you can do it before you graduate. Don't try and apply, I'm graduated, I want to do OPT. It's too late. You got to apply while you're still a student. And that is, you apply through, you would contact your designated school official, your international office. There's always this Office of International Students, and you would go through them. They would help you. And also this website, you can look, studyinthestates.dhs.gov. DHS stands for Department of Homeland Security. They have more information. When you're issued a visa to study as a student, it has an expiration. But when you arrive in the US, you are greeted by Customs and Border Patrol. They greet you at the airport usually, at the port of entry, and they give you a length of stay. Okay, they give you an authorized length of stay. If your length of stay is longer, so let's say they give you a 2-year, you can stay for 2 years, okay? But your visa expiration is 1 year out. So if you stay in the US that entire time, the visa will expire while you're there. It's okay. You've been approved to stay in the United States by CBP through that amount of time. As long as you don't leave Kazakhstan, as long as you don't leave the US after it's expired, you don't have to get another visa. Or as long as you maintain your student status in that time. You don't have to, you're fine. You can be in student status up to 5 years. That's the maximum. So most people end up having to get more than one because life is not that clean. Usually you have to like come back for a while, or maybe you get, leave school for a little while, but you potentially you could be approved to stay for quite a while. But you can be a student status up to 5 years. Basically, these 4 sites are really useful. The first is our website, the U.S. mission to Kazakhstan, and it's the visa page, non-immigrant visa page. The second one is the main site you would go to if you were starting your application process. And then the third is travel.state.gov visas, which is our main State Department website for anything related to visas. And I mean anything. It will blow your mind. There's a lot of information there. The fourth one is Immigration Customs and Enforcement. And then the fifth is what I mentioned earlier, the study in the states.dhs.gov/students. So that will give you information about OPT and things like that. If you're the wife or husband or child of someone studying, you can go under an F2. If you're an let's say you're an F1 and you're married, your husband or children could go under potentially. They could apply under derivative status as they're your family. 3 things that I need to be able to determine or be kind of comfortable with when when any officer is doing their adjudication. First, that you'll use your visa appropriately. Okay, that you're using it for the purpose that it's intended, which is to study. Second, that you have a home in Kazakhstan that you're not going to abandon. Meaning that you have ties here, right? You have maybe, a home or property or family or whatever, but that you aren't abandoning your home here. And the third is that you have sufficient resources to cover the cost of your education and your living expenses while you're in the United States. Those are the 3, there are of course many things, but those are the 3 most not the most important, but those are the 3 main things we look at when we're looking at student visas. Our email here for Almaty, our consular district, is usakz@state.gov.